Waitress runs after a millionaire who forgot his wallet only to be trapped in a marriage contract. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support truly means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us return to our main character. It was almost midnight in a quiet corner of downtown Chicago. The rain had just stopped, leaving the sidewalks glistening under the flickering neon sign of a 24-hour diner. Inside, the smell of overbrewed coffee clung to the air, mixed with the faint crackle of an old jukebox that had been stuck on the same playlist for years. Ella, a young waitress in her early 20s, was wiping down the counter with one hand while balancing a tray of empty mugs in the other. Her apron was stained, her sneakers were worn, and she had already counted her tips 3 times that night, praying they would be enough to cover bus fare home. She was used to late nights, rude customers, and aching feet. But she was not used to the kind of man who had just walked in. He slid into the back booth like he owned not only the diner but the entire street outside. His suit was navy and perfectly fitted, his shoes polished to a mirror shine. A heavy gold watch gleamed on his wrist, the kind of watch Ella had only seen on magazine covers. His dark hair was combed back, and his expression said he had never once waited in line for anything in his life. "Coffee. Black. No sugar. And a slice of pecan pie," he ordered, his voice deep, clipped, almost dismissive. Ella raised an eyebrow but scribbled it down. "Sure thing. Would you like a side of personality with that coffee, sir?" she muttered under her breath as she walked away. The pie came, the coffee came, and he barely touched either. He sat there for 20 minutes scrolling on his phone, the glow lighting up his sharp jawline. Finally, without looking up, he stood, adjusted his cufflinks, and placed something on the table. Ella walked over, expecting at least a $10 bill. Instead, her eyes widened. It was a single $1 bill. She froze, holding the tray to her chest. $1? Seriously? For coffee and pie? That is not even 10%. What century is this guy living in? She whispered. Her coworker Maria glanced over and smirked. Maybe he thinks you are lucky to even get that. Rich types, you know. Ella rolled her eyes. Rich type or not, if you can afford a watch that costs more than my car, you can afford a decent tip. No. She turned back toward the booth, and that was when she saw it. A sleek, black leather wallet wedged under the seat, embossed with golden initials that shimmered even in the dim light. It looked expensive, no, more than expensive. It looked like it belonged in a glass case at a luxury boutique. For a moment, temptation gnawed at her. Her rent was due, her brother's school supplies were unpaid, and she was one emergency away from disaster. What if she opened it? What if there was cash inside enough to change everything? But then she shook her head. Nope, I may be broke, but I am not stupid. My mom raised me better than that. She grabbed the wallet and rushed out into the damp street. The man was already halfway down the block, walking with the kind of measured confidence that made her blood boil. She had to jog just to keep up. "Hey, mister, forget your wallet," she shouted, darting between puddles. A cab honked as she dashed across the street. "You left this behind." The man stopped, turning slowly. His eyes locked on her, cool and sharp, like he was analyzing whether she was a nuisance or a threat. Ella panted, holding the wallet up like evidence. "You almost lost this. You are welcome, by the way. Or do millionaires in Chicago not say thank you anymore?" His lips twitched, almost like he was holding back a laugh, but his voice stayed calm and low. "What do you think you are doing?" And in that charged, rain-soaked moment, Ella had no idea that her ordinary night had just collided with a man who would change the course of her life forever. The man stood there under the dim glow of the streetlight, his sharp gaze cutting straight through Ella as if he were trying to solve a puzzle. For a long moment, neither of them moved. The sound of traffic hummed in the distance, broken only by the drip of water falling from the edge of a neon sign. Ella tightened her grip on the wallet, still panting from the sprint. "Look, I do not know what your problem is, but you left this behind. Next time, try tipping more than $1, and maybe the waitress will not have to chase you down the block in the rain." For the briefest second, something flickered across his face. Annoyance, amusement, perhaps even surprise. He reached out, took the wallet from her hands, and said in a cool tone, "You should be more careful running after strangers in the middle of the night." Ella scoffed. "You should be more careful leaving your stuff lying around. But sure, let us blame the waitress." Classic. She turned, ready to stomp back to the diner, but his voice stopped her. "What is your name?" he asked, the words measured, deliberate. She hesitated, then looked back over her shoulder. "Ella. Why? Planning to complain to my manager about my bad attitude?" He gave the faintest smile, one that looked almost foreign on his face. "Not exactly." And then he walked away, his stride steady, his figure fading into the city night. Ella shook her head, muttering to herself as she trudged back to the diner. Millionaires and their weird power games, whatever. But inside, something about that exchange clung to her. The arrogance, the strange question, the feeling that she had just brushed against a world far outside her own. The next morning, while Ella was serving breakfast to a table of construction workers, the diner's bell jingled again. She looked up, nearly dropping her coffee pot. It was him. The same man from the night before, now in a charcoal suit with a crisp white shirt. His presence seemed to pull the air taut. "Good morning, Ella," he said calmly, as though they were already acquainted. Her jaw tightened. "Do all millionaires memorize the names of random waitresses? Or am I just lucky?" He ignored the jab and sat down in the same booth. "I would like to talk to you." Maria nudged Ella from behind the counter. "Ooh, Ella, looks like you have an admirer." "Yeah, right," Ella muttered, grabbing her notepad. She walked over to his booth. "So, what is this? You forget to insult me last night and came back to finish the job?" He leaned forward, his eyes serious. "No, I came back because I need your help." Ella blinked, then laughed out loud. "You? Need my help? What, did your credit card get stuck in the ATM?" His expression did not change. "I am serious, and I am willing to compensate you well." He placed his wallet on the table, the same black leather one from last night. This time, he opened it deliberately, revealing not cash but a business card with his name printed in silver letters. Adrian Blackwell. Ella frowned. The name tugged at her memory. Where had she heard it before? Then it clicked headlines in the local paper. Society gossip that floated through the diner. Adrian Blackwell, heir to the Blackwell Hotel empire. A man whose net worth had been listed in the hundreds of millions. Her jaw dropped. "You've got to be kidding me. You are that Adrian Blackwell, the hotel guy?" He gave a slight nod. "And as you may know, my family has expectations." Ella crossed her arms. "Expectations? What does that have to do with me? I am just a waitress who chased you down because you cannot hold onto your wallet." "That," he said, leaning back against the booth, "is exactly why you might be the right person. You do not care who I am. You did not hesitate to call me out for tipping poorly. You are not impressed by money." Ella blinked in disbelief. "Hold on. Are you trying to recruit me for some kind of billionaire social experiment?" His lips curved into a faint smile. "Not exactly. Let us just say I need someone to play a very important role. Someone authentic. Someone who can handle pressure." The weight of his gaze made her pulse quicken. She wanted to laugh, to brush it off, but there was something in his tone that told her he was deadly serious. Ella shook her head, incredulous. "You are insane. Whatever it is you are planning, I am not your girl." She grabbed the coffee pot, ready to walk away. But Adrian's next words froze her in place. "What if I told you," he said quietly, "that this role comes with enough money to solve every financial problem you have ever had?" The coffee pot trembled slightly in Ella's hands. For a moment, the clatter of dishes and chatter of customers faded into the background. She looked at him, really looked at him, and realized that her ordinary life had just collided head-on with a proposition that could change everything. And this was only the beginning. The diner had grown louder around them, but to Ella, it felt as though the world had gone silent. Adrian's words echoed in her head, each syllable weighted with a promise and a threat. Enough money to solve every problem she had ever had. She set the coffee pot back onto the counter and folded her arms. "You are going to have to explain this, because right now it sounds like you are trying to bribe me into something very shady." Adrian leaned forward, his elbows resting lightly on the table. His composure was unshakable, the same calm elegance that made him look out of place in a greasy spoon diner. "I do not deal in bribes, Ella. I deal in contracts. Legal, binding, straightforward contracts. Her brow furrowed. Contracts? You make it sound like you are offering me a job. What could I possibly do for a millionaire like you? I am not a lawyer. I am not a secretary. I am not even someone who can fake sophistication at a cocktail party. He studied her face, his eyes steady, his voice low but firm. I do not need sophistication. I need authenticity. My family is demanding that I marry before the end of this year, or risk losing my position as the successor to the Blackwell Empire. Every woman they introduce me to sees dollar signs, not me. I need someone who has no interest in my wealth, someone ordinary, someone like you. Ella blinked, then burst out laughing, drawing confused stares from the other customers. You cannot be serious. You tracked me down to ask me to be your wife? That is insane. Adrian did not flinch. He slid a crisp white envelope across the table. Inside was a typed document stamped with the Blackwell family crest. 1 year, he said. A marriage in name only. You would live with me, attend events with me, and convince my family and the public that it is real. In return, I will pay off your debts in full and provide you with a generous stipend. At the end of the contract, we part ways with no further obligation. Ella stared at the envelope as though it might burst into flames. Her heart raced, and her palms grew damp. You want me to fake being your wife? For a year? Do you realize how insane that sounds? What happens when people figure it out? What happens when your family realizes I am not one of them? Adrian's jaw tightened. They will not. I will make sure of it. I have handled far greater scandals than this. What I cannot handle is my family stripping me of everything I have built simply because I refuse to be manipulated into a loveless marriage. She pushed the envelope back toward him. Find another actress, or a model, or someone who at least knows which fork to use at a fancy dinner. I am a waitress who lives paycheck to paycheck. I would not fit into your world for a single second. His gaze did not waver. That is exactly why you are perfect. They will believe it because no one would suspect it. You are unexpected. And most importantly, you cannot be bought in the same way others can. You have pride. You have fire. That is what makes this convincing. Ella shook her head, her voice rising. No. This is ridiculous. You are asking me to lie every single day for a year. You are asking me to throw myself into a world where I will be ridiculed, judged, and humiliated. For what? So you can keep your empire? He leaned closer, his voice dropping. Not just for me, for you too. You said last night that rent was late. You did not think I heard, but I did. Your brother's school bills, your mother's medical expenses. Do not pretend those burdens are not crushing you. I am offering you a way out. Her throat tightened. She hated that he knew so much, hated that he had seen right through her. You have no idea what my life is like, she whispered. You are right, he said softly. I do not. But I want to give you the chance to change it. The envelope still sat between them like a loaded gun. Ella wanted to shove it away, to end this absurd conversation, but her eyes kept drifting back to it. She imagined the relief on her mother's face if the hospital bills disappeared. She imagined her brother finally walking into school without shame. And she imagined, for just a fleeting second, what it would be like to live in a mansion instead of a cramped apartment with peeling wallpaper. Her voice trembled. What if I say yes? What happens then? Adrian's eyes locked onto hers. Then tomorrow morning, we sign the contract, and from that moment on, you will be my wife in the eyes of the world. Ella's heart pounded, a mix of fear, disbelief, and something she could not quite name. She knew one thing for certain: if she agreed, her life would never be the same again. And against her better judgment, a small part of her wondered if maybe, just maybe, she was ready to risk it. Ella had always imagined that wealth would feel warm and comforting, like sinking into a soft armchair after a long day. But when she stood in the marble foyer of Adrian Blackwell's mansion for the first time, she felt nothing but cold. The ceilings soared 2 stories high, with crystal chandeliers dripping light onto the polished floors. A grand staircase curved upward like something from a fairy tale, and expensive paintings lined the walls in heavy golden frames. It was breathtaking, but it was also intimidating. This was not a home. It was a stage. Adrian walked in behind her, his presence as commanding as the mansion itself. This is where you will be staying, he said. His voice echoed faintly, swallowed by the vastness of the hall. Ella hugged her backpack closer. Right. Just what every waitress dreams of. Trading in a one-bedroom apartment for a castle. A butler appeared, stiff and polite. Mr. Blackwell, should I prepare the master suite for the lady? Ella nearly choked. Excuse me? No, 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 that will not be necessary. Adrian's expression did not change. She will stay in the east wing. That will be all. Oh, The butler bowed and disappeared down the corridor. Ella exhaled, muttering, East wing? What is this? Beauty and the Beast. Adrian gave her a sideways glance but said nothing. Instead, he handed her a copy of the marriage contract. Every line had been typed with precision. Rules, boundaries, expectations. She was to attend all family functions, accompany him to charity galas, and maintain the appearance of a devoted wife. Ella skimmed the pages, her stomach tightening. This is insane. There are rules here about how I should smile, how I should dress, even how I should hold your arm in public. Who writes this stuff? My family's attorneys, Adrian replied calmly. It is necessary. They will be watching you closely. Watching me? More like hunting me. She tossed the contract onto the table. This is not a marriage. This is a performance. Exactly, Adrian said. And the success of this performance depends on you. Dinner that night proved his point. The Blackwell dining room was longer than the diner where Ella worked. A table stretched across the room, covered with fine china and glittering silverware. Adrian's mother, a regal woman in pearls, sat at the head, while his father regarded Ella with the same disapproval one might reserve for a stain on a pristine suit. Ella fumbled with the wrong fork, earning a raised eyebrow from Adrian's ex-fiancée, Clara, who had somehow been invited. Clara leaned across the table, her smile sweet but her words dripping with poison. So, Ella, where exactly did you two meet? Was it at one of those charity galas? Or perhaps a summer trip to the Hamptons? Ella's cheeks burned. She opened her mouth, but Adrian cut in smoothly. We met in the city, by chance, the kind of chance you only get once in a lifetime. His eyes flicked toward Ella, steady and deliberate, as if reminding her that they were in this together. For the rest of dinner, Ella kept her head down, but her ears burned with whispers. She could feel every stare, every judgment, every test. By the end of the night, her back ached from sitting up so straight and her jaw hurt from forcing polite smiles. When the last dish had been cleared away and the family dispersed, Ella collapsed into a chair in the hall. Your family hates me, she muttered. Adrian stood nearby, his expression unreadable. They do not know you. Oh, they do not want to know me, she shot back. To them, I am a waitress pretending to wear pearls. That is all they will ever see. For the first time, his calm exterior cracked just slightly. Then show them something else. Ella stared at him, stunned. She wanted to argue, to remind him that this was all his ridiculous idea. But instead, she sat in silence, realizing that the performance had already begun, and she was no longer sure where the act ended and the truth began. The days that followed felt like stepping onto a tightrope that stretched between two worlds. By day, Ella was the dutiful contract wife, dressed in designer clothes she could barely pronounce, walking beside Adrian at charity galas and business dinners. By night, when the gowns were hung back in their closets and the diamonds locked away, she was still Ella, the diner waitress, who longed for the smell of frying bacon and the sound of a jukebox humming. Adrian noticed the conflict. He saw it in the way she forced her smile for the cameras, in the stiffness of her shoulders when the society women whispered behind their champagne glasses. He saw it in the way she would retreat to the East Wing after every event, shutting herself off as if the marble walls were a shield. One evening, after a particularly brutal gala where Clara had made pointed remarks about Ella's small-town charm, Adrian found her sketching at the kitchen counter. Her hair was pulled into a messy bun, her gown replaced by an oversized diner t-shirt. She was drawing the chandelier from memory, pencil strokes fast and angry. You are better at this than you think, Adrian said quietly. She jumped, glaring at him. Do you mind? I draw to relax. Not everything in this house has to be a performance. He leaned against the counter. It is not a performance if it is real. Her laugh was sharp. Real? Nothing about this is real. Not the dress, not the parties, not this so-called marriage. I am just a prop in your fight against your family." His jaw tightened, but he did not argue. Instead, he picked up the sketchbook, studying the chandelier she had captured with surprising accuracy. "This looks more alive than the real thing." She snatched it back. "Do not pretend to care. You and your family see me as nothing but an actress in your play." Something flickered in his eyes, something unguarded. "Not me." "No." The silence stretched. Ella's chest rose and fell quickly. She wanted to believe him, but the walls around her heart were too high. The breaking point came during a high-stakes investor dinner. A deal worth millions hung in the balance, and Clara, ever the saboteur, whispered loudly enough for half the table to hear, "It is a shame Adrian had to settle for someone who cannot even tell the difference between a salad fork and a dinner fork." The laughter that followed stung. Ella froze, cheeks burning, until Adrian suddenly stood. He lifted his glass, voice calm but firm. "I did not marry Ella for her knowledge of cutlery. I married her because she tells the truth, even when it is uncomfortable. That is worth more than etiquette." The room went silent. Eyes shifted, some impressed, some scandalized. Ella sat in shock, her heart pounding. For once, Adrian had not only shielded her, he had chosen her, publicly, in front of everyone. That night, back in the mansion, she confronted him. "Why did you defend me like that? You did not have to." Adrian looked at her, his gaze steady. "Because it was the truth, and because I am tired of watching them tear you down." Her throat tightened. She wanted to fight, to deny, to remind him that this was all fake. But deep inside, she felt something dangerous and undeniable stirring. For the first time, Ella wondered if the line between performance and reality was starting to blur. The night after Adrian had publicly defended her, Ella should have felt secure. Instead, she felt the weight of a spotlight she never asked for. The whispers had not stopped. If anything, they had only grown sharper. By the next morning, gossip columns were buzzing. Photos of her at the investor dinner appeared online, captions dripping with mockery. "Blackwell's waitress bride struggles with fine dining." The comments were cruel. Some mocked her dress, others her posture, and some even accused her of being a gold digger. Ella slammed her phone shut, her chest burning. "They hate me," she whispered. Maria, calling from the diner where she still worked part-time on weekends, tried to soothe her. "Ignore them, Ella. They do not know you." But ignoring was impossible when the attacks came from inside the house. Clara prowled the edges of every event, whispering to reporters, feeding stories to the press. And the Blackwell family attorneys had begun to ask questions, scrutinizing every move Ella made. One afternoon, Clara cornered Ella in the gallery hall, lined with portraits of Adrian's ancestors. "You know this will not last," she hissed, her smile as sharp as glass. "People like you never survive in this world. And when this farce falls apart, I will be there to pick up the pieces." Ella's hands trembled, but she stood her ground. "At least I am not hiding behind whispers and rumors. If you want Adrian back, maybe try honesty for once." Clara's eyes flashed, but before she could reply, Adrian appeared at the end of the hall. His presence cut the tension, but not the doubt gnawing at Ella's chest. Later that evening, Adrian found her pacing in the East Wing. "You cannot let Clara get to you," he said. "She is not the problem," Ella shot back. "The problem is that everyone is waiting for me to slip. They are watching me like vultures. And when I make one wrong move, this whole charade will collapse." His jaw tightened. "I will not let that happen." "How can you promise that?" she demanded. "What if they find out about the contract? What if someone already knows?" The words hung heavy between them. Adrian did not answer immediately. Instead, he walked to the window, staring out at the manicured gardens below. "There are risks," he admitted. "Clara has resources, and the press loves a scandal. If the contract were ever revealed, it would destroy more than just my reputation. It would destroy you too." Ella's throat closed. For the first time, she understood just how fragile their arrangement was. One leak, one piece of paper in the wrong hands, and everything would unravel. She sank into a chair, whispering, "Maybe this was a mistake. Maybe I should have never agreed." Adrian turned, his eyes hard. "Do not say that. You are stronger than you think. You are the only person who has stood up to me, to them, to this entire circus. That is why I chose you. That is why I need you." His words struck something deep inside her, but fear still coiled tight in her chest. She wanted to believe him, wanted to trust that he could shield her from the storm gathering outside. But for the first time since signing the contract, Ella wondered if love, real or not, was worth the cost of exposure. The storm Ella feared finally came crashing down. It began at a charity auction held in the grand ballroom of the Blackwell Hotel, a night meant to dazzle donors and secure goodwill. Ella had been dressed in a gown carefully chosen by Adrian's mother, her smile rehearsed, her every movement scrutinized. Cameras flashed, glasses clinked, and for a moment she almost convinced herself she belonged. Then Clara struck. As the bidding heated up, Clara took the stage under the guise of announcing a prize. With a perfectly timed pause, she pulled out a folder and held it high for the crowd to see. "Ladies and gentlemen," she purred, "before we continue, I think the city deserves to know the truth about Adrian Blackwell's fairy tale marriage." Whispers spread like fire. Adrian stiffened beside Ella, his jaw tight. Clara snapped the folder open and revealed a stack of papers. "This," she declared, "is a signed marriage contract. A fraud. A lie sold to the public. Adrian did not marry for love. He married for convenience. And here is the proof." Gasps rippled through the ballroom. Reporters surged forward, cameras flashing wildly. The document, stamped and signed, was paraded before the crowd like a weapon. Ella felt the ground tilt beneath her. The humiliation was instant and merciless. Every mocking headline she had endured, every whisper behind a glass of champagne, suddenly had ammunition. She wanted to scream that it was not her idea, that she had been dragged into this circus, but the words stuck in her throat. Adrian reached for her hand, but she pulled away, her eyes burning. "You told me this would never come out," she hissed, her voice shaking. "You promised." He tried to speak, but the cameras were everywhere, capturing every flicker of expression. His silence only deepened her despair. In that instant, Ella understood what the crowd saw. Not Adrian the defender, not Adrian the man who had chosen her at dinner, but Adrian the heir, protecting his empire at all costs, even if it meant sacrificing her. Tears stung her eyes as she turned and fled the ballroom. The sound of reporters shouting questions chased her down the corridor. Gold digger, liar, fraud. The words echoed until she could hardly breathe. Back at the mansion, she tore off the borrowed gown and dropped it onto the marble floor. Her sketchbook lay on the desk where she had left it, filled with drawings she had once hoped would bring her peace. With trembling hands, she pulled a sketch free the chandelier she had drawn in anger, the one Adrian had once admired. She left it on the table beside the contract and the wedding ring she had never believed was hers. When Adrian returned hours later, exhausted and furious from trying to contain the scandal, the house was silent. He saw the sketch, the ring, the absence of the woman who had once filled the cold mansion with laughter and fire. And for the first time, Adrian Blackwell, the man who had always controlled every deal, every boardroom, every move, realized he had lost the one thing he could not negotiate back. For the first time in years, Adrian Blackwell felt powerless. His empire had survived hostile takeovers, lawsuits, and market crashes. Yet one woman walking away had left him shaken in a way no boardroom battle ever had. Ella's absence hollowed the mansion. Every room seemed colder, every corridor more echoing. The sketch and the ring remained on the table like accusations, reminders of promises broken. The scandal exploded across the media. Headlines screamed, "Blackwell marriage a sham." Talk shows dissected every detail. Reporters camped outside the gates, shouting questions. Adrian's parents demanded he issue a statement to protect the family's image. Clara, ever triumphant, smirked in interviews, spinning the story to her advantage. But Adrian had reached his breaking point. At a press conference hastily arranged in the hotel ballroom, cameras flashed as he stepped to the podium. His family sat stiffly in the front row, their eyes warning him to follow the script prepared by the attorneys. But Adrian ignored the neatly typed speech waiting on the lectern. "I have spent my life doing what was expected of me," he began, his voice carrying through the hushed room. "I have closed deals, attended galas, worn the mask my family demanded. But tonight, I will not hide behind lawyers or contracts. Tonight, I will tell the truth." Reporters leaned forward, pens ready. "Yes, there was a contract. I entered into a marriage of convenience. But what began as an arrangement became something I did not expect. Somewhere between the staged photographs and the endless parties, I fell in love with Ella. Gasps swept the room. His mother paled. Clara's smile faltered. Adrian continued, his voice steady. Ella is not a fraud. She is the most honest person I have ever met. She challenged me when no one else dared. She reminded me of what integrity looks like. And while my family may not approve, and while the world may mock, I will not deny it anymore. I love her. And if protecting my family's empire means betraying her, then I choose her. Even if it costs me everything. The room erupted reporters, shouting questions, flashes bursting like fireworks. His family rose in outrage, but Adrian did not waver. He stepped down from the podium, leaving the chaos behind. That night, instead of retreating to his mansion, Adrian went to the small diner where it had all begun. The neon sign still flickered. The jukebox still hummed. And behind the counter, wearing her stained apron, stood Ella. She looked up, stunned. "What are you doing here?" Adrian approached, his expression stripped of arrogance, his voice raw. "I came to tell you what I should have said from the start. I love you, Ella. Not as part of a deal, not as a contract. Just you." Her throat tightened. "You humiliated me. You let me stand there alone." "I know," he said. "And I will spend the rest of my life making it right, if you let me." He pulled something from his coat pocket, her sketch of the chandelier, now framed. "This kept me alive when you left, because it reminded me of the fire you bring into every room." For a long moment, Ella said nothing. The diner buzzed quietly around them, the smell of coffee in the air. Then, slowly, she reached for the sketch, her fingers brushing his. For the first time, Adrian felt hope that redemption was possible. The diner was quiet except for the hum of the jukebox and the occasional clink of a coffee cup. Ella still held the framed sketch, her fingers brushing the glass. Her chest rose and fell, as though she was carrying the weight of a decision heavier than anything in her life. Adrian did not move closer. For the first time, he did not try to control the room, the story, or her. He simply waited, his eyes fixed on her, as if every ounce of his future depended on her next word. "You made me believe I was nothing more than a piece of paper in your war with your family," Ella whispered. "You let me stand there humiliated, thinking I was disposable." Adrian's voice was raw. "I know, and I hate myself for it. But the truth is, you are the only part of this life I cannot replace. Money, contracts, hotels, I could lose all of it. But losing you broke me in a way nothing else ever has." The silence stretched, filled with the scent of coffee and the neon glow bouncing off the rain-streaked windows. Finally, Ella's shoulders softened. "I do not want a contract. I do not want rules and appearances. If there is going to be an us, it has to be real." Adrian stepped forward at last, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. He opened it to reveal a ring, simple but elegant, nothing like the ostentatious diamond his family had once chosen. "Then let it be real. No attorneys, no signatures, just a vow between us." Ella's eyes filled with tears. She remembered the girl who once chased a stranger down a rainy street, clutching a wallet, never imagining it would lead here. She remembered the humiliation, the fear, the chaos. But she also remembered the moments of truth, the way Adrian had defended her, the way he had looked at her sketch like it mattered, the way he had chosen her at last. With trembling hands, she took the ring. "If I say yes, this time it is forever. No walking away when it gets hard. No hiding behind contracts." Adrian's gaze did not falter. "Forever, that is the only deal I want." The jukebox clicked, switching to a soft love ballad as if on cue. Ella laughed through her tears, sliding the ring onto her finger. For the first time, it did not feel borrowed. It felt hers. Weeks later, the world still buzzed with gossip, but the story had changed. Photos of Adrian and Ella walking hand in hand, smiling without pretense, replaced the headlines of scandal. And inside the lobby of the Blackwell Hotel, a new piece of art had been unveiled, a framed enlargement of Ella's chandelier sketch, hanging proudly as a symbol of resilience and love. For Adrian, it was a declaration to the world. For Ella, it was proof that she had not just stepped into his world, she had transformed it. and together, they finally began a marriage that was not written in ink, but carved into their hearts.